Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jaden and I'm going to tell you about the 18 books I read in October. So the first book I read was Tangled Up In You, and it was a retelling of the movie Tangled, but in a modern day setting. I really enjoyed this retelling of Rapunzel's story based off the movie. I love the chemistry between Ren and Fitz, who are Rapunzel and Flynn Rider, and how their character arcs changed throughout the book. It was a very fast read, and I started and finished this book in less than a day. Even though this is a Tangled retelling, there were a lot of references that felt hammered in to let you know, hey, this is a Tangled retelling. So whether they were talking about Pascal, like a Pascal reference, or a Maximus reference, or if you know the story of the movie, they would go somewhere and you're like, okay, this is where the ugly duckling is supposed to be. This is when Flynn betrays her. Like, you very similar story beats and all these references, and it was felt very beaten in to let you know, hey, this is Tangled. So I didn't really like all of that because it got really annoying really fast. I quite enjoyed myself while reading this book, and I would recommend this book if you like Disney retellings. And then the second book I read was Middle of the Night, and I rated that one 3 stars. And so our protagonist, his name is Ethan, he comes home after 30 years of his childhood best friend Billy he disappeared. And so he comes back home to his childhood home, and then stuff starts happening to him, or he starts getting items that only him and his friend Billy would have known. So he has to figure out, is Billy trying to talk to him, even though he's been gone for 30 plus years, or something else amiss. So it was an interesting idea, but it just didn't work for me. It was very slow, and I started to not care after a while. The mystery of it was good, but it just didn't work for me. And I had read previous books from this author before, and I really, really liked them. But this one just did not stick the landing for me, and I did not enjoy myself. It was okay, I just did not enjoy it that much. I'll give the book props for who we find out who was the whodunit, because I didn't expect that. But other than that, the book was just mid. The third book I read was You Can Never Be Me, and I rated this one 4.5 stars. 8 years ago, influencer Meredith brought Aspen into the influence world. In present day now, Aspen and Meredith no longer are on speaking terms with each other, and Aspen is now more popular than Meredith on social media. Then Meredith goes missing, and Aspen's life starts falling apart. Is it connected, or is it something else? I really enjoyed the characters and the premise of this book. It kept me on my toes. I liked how I was able to bittersweetly both like and dislike both of these characters. Like, I felt sympathy for them, but also I was angry at them at the same time. So at the same time, if that makes sense. I wish both Meredith and Aspen's chapters in the first half had been labeled, like, time-wise, but then it would have spoiled what happens in the book. And with what happens in the book, it happens halfway through. So it was very interesting that this happened halfway through, and I'm like, okay, how is this going to pan out the rest of the book? And it turns out it works really well. It just was very interesting for me when twists happen halfway through books, and I'm like, okay, how is this going to work the rest of the way? And this book did a really good thing with presenting the twist halfway through and then following through with it. I would definitely read this book again, just to see what I missed during my first reading, because, especially in the first half, because the first half is different than the second half, so, like, if I read it again, I will be able to spot all the little nods and misses that I missed the first time I read it. The fourth book I read was The Wrath of the Triple Goddess, and I rated this one 5 stars. So, Percy, Annabeth, and Grover babysit Hades. I'm going to put it right here. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'm sorry. You can let me know down in the comments if I'm saying it wrong or how to pronounce it correctly. Her pets to get Percy's second college recommendation letter for New Rome University. But the pets escape after Grover drinks a potion and he gets turned into a creature, and they have to get the pets back before Hecate returns. I finished this book in only a few hours. I love reading Percy Jackson books, and I love reading and catching up on the shenanigans. I grew up with these books. Whenever I get a new one, I just eat it all up. It was a great story, and I was still scared for them, even though I'm pretty sure Percy and Elizabeth get into New Rome University. If I remember correctly from the Trials of Apollo, but I could be wrong, so let me know down in the comments. I love the Percy Jackson series. I eat it up every time there's a new book. I did like how I was able to recognize more of the people in this book. There was a lot more Greek mythology references, and I was able to recognize a lot more people and these references in this book because of all the Greek retellings I've been reading this year. So I'm like, I understand who this is. Oh, I understand who this person's supposed to be. So it was very cool that I was able to make those connections while reading. And I really, really enjoyed this book. And like the copy I got from Barnes and Noble, so it was like the red sprayed edges and pages. Oh, it was so beautiful. After that, I read Kill the Beast, and I rated it 5 stars. It's a retelling of Gaston's story from Beauty and the Beast. I finished the book in a little more than a day. Very fast to read and drew me in immediately. I liked how this book gave Gaston more character development than what we got in the book. Not book, but movie. And it just makes his fate more tragic and makes him more sympathetic because we got to know him more as a person in this book compared to the movie where he's just like this bad guy. But in the book, we see how he knew the prince beforehand, how he had this great relationship with him, and then just got all yanked away because of what the prince did. So I liked how we got more of that in this book. I would definitely read this book again. I really enjoyed myself while reading this book. After that, I read Magical Meet Cute, and I rated that 5 stars. Faye is a Jewish store owner whose neighborhood has been under attack from anti-Semites. In drunken stupor, Faye creates a golem to protect her neighborhood, and that also has all the factors in her perfect man. The next day, she hits someone with her bike, and this guy, has all the physical attributes of the golem that she created, the golem's like a clay creature. So she hits a guy with a bike. He has all the physical attributes as this clay creature she created, and this guy has amnesia. So is this guy actual real, or is he the golem that she created to help protect her neighborhood? I really like this book, and while I'm not Jewish, I did like how Judaism was portrayed in this book. I like how Faye is a Jew-witch, so she's a Jewish witch, which I had never heard of before I read this book. So I liked how there was a new perspective of Judaism. I'm not Jewish, so I can't say for sure if it was accurate or not, but I did like how she was portrayed. I liked the romance between Faye and Greg, and how both their character arcs grew in the story. It's a book I would read over and over again because of Faye's relationship with love and how I can relate to it. I liked how the tiny mystery with the paper boys wrapped up with the overall story overall, and I liked how protective Greg is of Faye. I would highly recommend this book. After that, I read A Touch of Darkness, and I rated that 4 stars. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling. Persephone gets into a contract with Hades, with the terms being that she must create life in the underworld in 6 months, or she has to stay in the underworld with him forever. Book was on my TBR for a while. I took it off, and then I put it back on. I don't think me in the beginning of this year would have liked this as much as me in October did, because of all the stuff that's been going on. So I did overall enjoy this book a lot. I liked that this book had a great plot and wasn't just smut, which is what I feared it was going to be. I wish there was like more sex in it, just a personal thing. I liked the characters and their arcs. I didn't really like Hades with long hair and beard, but that's what my personal preference. I got attached to the characters, and I want to read more about them. I think I'm going to read the second book in next month, so if you can't wait to hear my review about it, you just have to wait till next month for the second one. I didn't like the third act breakup that happens in this book. I really hate third act breakups because I know they're just going to get back together at the end. So what the heck? What the heck is with that? And that there's like one part of a sex scene that I didn't like, and I'm like, that, no, don't be doing that. Don't be doing that. But overall, I enjoyed this book. After that, I read Sync, and I rated that one 4.5 stars. It's told in verse, and it's dual perspectives of twins Storm and Lake, and their separate foster homes, and just the story of them all together. It's following their life together and apart. I love that it was written in verse, which made it a very quick read. Storm's girlfriend has my name, which might have played a tiny factor in why I decided to read this book. It's spelled incorrectly my way, but I might, like, hey, that's my name, I might want to read that book, but I'm not confirming or denying anything. Storm and Lake have definitely gone through some stuff, whether it's the same stuff or different stuff together, but I liked how they both similarly and differently grew from all the different things that are happening in life and how they choose to use those experiences. It was a fast read. I wish there was more of Storm and Lake together in the book, rather just like only a couple. It's mostly they're spending their time apart. I wish there was more of them together. The book ends in an inferring way, like it infers, hey, this may happen, but I'd rather have a confirmation. Overall, it was a good read. After that, I read The Palace of Eros, and I rated this one 3.25 stars. It's a retelling of the story of Psyche and Eros, which I'm very similar to reading about. I was actually disappointed in reading this book. Usually I love books based off Greek mythology, but this one just did not work for me. I didn't like the writing in this book, and I felt like both Psyche and Eros' inner thoughts would just drag on, page after page, and it just got so annoying. I stopped caring after a while. Then Psyche's thoughts felt pretentious to me at the end. To me at the end, and it just came out of nowhere. It was a short and fast read, though, which was good. I did like both Psyche and Eros, especially learning about Eros' history, it being non-binary. I thought that the book had interesting and good sex scenes, good character development. Book was very fast into getting into the plot, it was boom, plot immediately, straight into the story, which felt rushed to me in the beginning, and then it felt very rushed at the end. Overall, it was a good read. This story, it reminded me a lot of the story called The Little Daughter and the Lion. Like, the dad goes out hunting, he hurts like a lion or something, and the lion's like, you have to pay for this, and the dad's like, I'll give you whatever, and he's like, the lion's like, okay, you have to give me the first thing that you see when you get home. And so the dad thinks, oh, it's gonna be my dog, but it actually turned out to be his daughter, and so he's like, okay, you have to go live with the lion now, but she goes live with the lion, but she can't see him in the light, so she has to use she can only be with him in the dark, and that's how they're together. And then something drips on him one night, and then he runs away, and then she has to go get him back. It's a very similar story. So if you've heard of the Little Daughter and the Lion story, that's what this book is. Palace of Eros is the Little Daughter and Lion story. After that, I read Astronaut, and I rated this one 4.5 stars. It tells the stories of the different women that the Kennedy family has used and abused over time. It was a very fascinating read about the Kennedys, because I didn't really know much about the Kennedys before reading this. So this was a very interesting read overall. I hadn't realized how many women's lives the Kennedys had messed up. I'd only briefly known about Marilyn Monroe with both JFK and RFK, Jackie Kennedy, and the woman that died in the car accident with Ted Kennedy. But I didn't know there were some more women and how messed up the Kennedy family is and how they keep getting away with stuff. I learned new things about the Kennedys. I enjoyed the photos included, but I wish there was a picture with the woman when it came to their chapter rather just in the photo galleries, because that way you can just see, hey, this is what this woman looks like, and this is who she is. I did like the galleries though, so that way I could figure out, oh, this is this woman, oh, this is this woman. I'm really glad I picked up this book though. I thought it was very interesting, very intriguing, and I learned a lot more about how messed up the Kennedys are. After that, I read Hera. I rated this one 3 stars, and it's a retelling of the story of Hera. I read other books from this author, and I really liked those books, and I thought, oh, I might really like this one too. Nope, I did not. I was just disappointed with it, and it was just meh. It just dragged on for me, and it took forever for me to finish. The story is interesting, but I just could not get into it. There was just too much stuff going on, and then characters would be introduced, and then they would leave a page later. And it's like, great, why introduce them if there was no point? There was no point. And it felt too stuffed. I was just disappointed because I love Greek mythology, and this was the second book I read this month with Greek mythology that just didn't interest me, didn't rate very high. It was just meh, and it just was like, what the heck is going on? I just wish this book had just been better than it was, because it just disappointed me. After that, I read Elektra issue 1. Elektra, I'll rate this one 5 stars. Elektra is in Vegas, hiding from the world, and when the bartender, her name is Lauren, who Elektra was talking to, Elektra sees her getting beaten up by her boyfriend. Elektra comes out to play, and it intrigues and pulled me in. First issue of a series, and I didn't feel confused or out of place like I've done before when reading the first issue of comics. The last page makes me want to read more and learn more, which leads me to issue 2 of Elektra. I read this one 4 stars, so it's a continuation of issue 1. But the owner of the casino sends murder bots after Elektra. She finishes them off and goes to figure out where shipments are being made, which leads her to a trap, leading her to Murder World, owned by the villain Arcade. Stories easy to follow and keep track of. I'm not familiar with Arcade or Screwball, so when I was reading that, I was kind of iffy because I'm like, I don't know who these characters are. But it was a good story. After that, I got into issue 3 of Elektra and rated this one 4 stars. So Elektra defeats all her competition who were after her her competition had murdered all the other contestants fighting with her in Murder World. She also gets flashbacks of her past with Daredevil. She's given a dilemma at the end of the comic with a timeline, and Lauren the bartender being in danger. I wish we had known the other contenders a little bit more before they all got killed by the competition, by Screwball and her people. Because, like, these people died, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't know who you are. And you're just dead. I'm like, okay. I still don't know much about Arcade or Screwball. Still don't. And the flashback about Daredevil was jarring in the beginning, and it felt like it came out of nowhere. Which led me to issue 4 of Elektra. 4 stars again. Elektra fights Screwball through a carousel in a haunted house to stop the bomb on her neck while also saving Lauren the bartender. Arcade builds a giant robot to stop her at the end. Fast-paced and easy to follow. There was no connection to Screwball when she got defeated, even though we got a little bit of her flashback. I still didn't care. I'm like, okay, she's defeated. I don't care. I still don't know much about these villains, and it's the penultimate issue when I was reading, so I'm like, I don't care if you get defeated or not. I don't care. They were good issues so far, and they got me hooked and invested what's going to happen, and then I finished the series with Elektra issue 5, 4.5 stars. Elektra defeats Arcade with some new enhancements and finds out he was working for Kingpin, meaning she's headed back to NYC. I liked Elektra's new suit when she was fighting Arcade. Looked amazing. Interesting but fast way to end the issue line. Kind of predicted that it would lead back to Kingpin, and that she would need to head back to New York to face its problem and her own demons. Good issue overall, and a good way to end the series, even though it was a little predictable that she was going to end up going back to NYC. The penultimate book that I read in October was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and I rated this one 4 stars. I actually found out about this book through Book Talk. So it's about Jeannie. Jeannie moves to Dream Harbor after inheriting her aunt's coffee shop. And there she meets Logan, who's a produce farmer, who used to sell produce to Jeannie's aunt before she moved, and whose last relationship ended very badly in front of the whole town. Will this relationship between Jeannie and Logan last between them, or will they both get hurt? So it was a good book, and it sucked me in during the first page. I could relate a lot to both Jeannie and Logan's problems about relationships in the past and the fear of abandonment, because I have that. Too many characters to keep track of with this book. This book has a lot of side characters, and all these side characters have their own individual books for their own like love interest. It's just that sometimes it felt like there were so many characters, and it's like, okay, I need to stop keeping track. There's too many of these characters, and I don't really care about half of them. And I'm not gonna read their stories, but there's just so many of them, in my opinion. I didn't like the tiny breakup that they had after having sex in the book, and I wish there was more sex in the book. I don't like the third act breakup. I really, really hate it. I really hate that. The little mystery subplots in the book didn't have good payoffs for me. They were just like subplots to put subplots in, and they just didn't lead anything to me. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. One like small gripe I had for this book was that both Logan and Jeannie were trying to get into each other's pants like 30 pages in, and I'm like, guys, chill. You just saw each other and both think are attractive. You don't need to go into each other's pants yet. Just like chill. Know each other first before you both try to do that. And then the last book I read was A Nightmare Before Kissmas, and I read this one 4 stars. I actually found out about this book through Book Talk actually. So we can blame Book Talk for that and the previous book. So Cole is the Hera Christmas who's fake engaged to his best friend Iris, who is the princess of Easter. And then Halloween hears about this and wants to get on this fake, who wants to fake marry Iris. Well, not fake marry. It's more of he wants to try to marry Iris too, but for a different reason. So it's the two guys, like a love triangle with like Iris, because they're both trying to fight for her attention because of like logistics with Christmas and Halloween and the whole capitalism thing. So that's the premise of it. So will one of them fall for Iris, or will they end up both boys fall for each other instead? I thought the concept of the book was interesting, and I found out about this book through Book Talk. I liked how Cole grows throughout the book, and I like how Hex grows with Cole throughout the book. Some of the business talking about capitalism and joy and the holidays perspective in this confused me, and I kind of zoned out when they were talking about this because it just didn't click with me, and I'm like, I don't care. I know this is supposed to be important with all the logistics about these holidays, and it's how like the plot comes to be, but I just didn't care, and like it went one ear and out the other. Also, this book had the third act breakup with like 40 pages in, and I'm like, guys, why are you doing this to me? They're gonna get back together. There's 40 pages left. They're gonna get back together. Why are you doing this to me? This is so stupid. I really hate the third act breakup. And then at the end, Chris is Cole's brother, and Iris, there's something that happens between the two of them at the end. And it's kind of, the way it ends kind of leads it towards the next book because it's about Cole's brother Chris. And I'm like, okay, this came like out of nowhere. You're not gonna resolve it, and you're not gonna resolve it. You're just gonna leave it hanging. Okay, I didn't like that because then it just left the ending confusing for me and didn't leave me feeling resolved from this book. While reading, I could relate a lot to Cole, and I thought the sex scenes in this book were good. I don't know if I'm gonna pick up the sequel, but overall, I really enjoyed reading this book. So I can thank Book Talk for that. So those are the 18 books I read in October. If you have any recommendations for the next couple months for the year, let me know down below. Or if you just have comments about books in general, just let me know down below. Otherwise, I will see you guys next month. Bye!